Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well today. Well, today's video is going to be quite different than the other videos that I have uploaded on this channel. I'm going to start a series of episodes with very two young, brilliant minds who lives in different parts of the world, and we together are going to compare and discuss about different managerial aspects. We will try to find out the similarities in diversity when it comes to management. So you will get gist of it as the episode proceeds further. And without much of discussing in the introductory, let's get started. Hi Rahul, hi Gaurav. So since this is our very first episode, we will start with introductions, and this is going to be a very basic episode for today. So let's get started. Let's start with introductions. Tell us about yourself, something about your professional life, where you are based, what are you doing right now professionally, etc. We'll start with Gaurav.
Hey everyone, so hey Namrata, hey Rahul. I'm basically right now in Heidelberg, so I'm doing my PhD currently in my third year, and around next year or so, I might be close to the end. And I'm doing my PhD at a interdisciplinary topic, so it's a mix of engineering, biomedical, cell biology, all of these things. And my background is also a bit of interdisciplinary. So I started my bachelor's in chemical engineering, but also with a focus on polymers. And then for my master's, I was in master's in biofabrication, where it was more again learning a bit about tissue engineering, implants, how would you deliver drugs in your body, or if you had to, let's say, change a knee, what are the implications, what are the variables that go into it, these kind of things, also from material side as well as biological side. And now I've ended up in Heidelberg doing this. So yeah.
How about you, Rahul? Tell us about yourself, your professional life, what you are doing, what's your educational background.
Hello everyone. I am currently working as demand planner at Zenweek. I started working professionally since about like 2.5 years. And since then I have been working in domain of planning, name it production planning or demand planning, which involves mainly working with forecasting, safety stocks, and yeah, just about it. Educationally, I have studied like my master's in production engineering, and I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. So yeah, I have been around studying and working around industrial domain for my life, I would say.
Interesting. I think it will be really wonderful and interesting to discuss in few more episodes about your transition from educating yourself in India to going to different countries. What were the diverse or different things that you explored there? What were the similarities that you found, especially in terms of management? Of course, we will discuss in different episodes. So today, let's keep it very basic. My first question to both of you, since this channel is all about management training, and you both come from a very different technical backgrounds. One is from academic, one is from industrial background, but in engineering. But I believe that management is a very crucial part anywhere that we live, we work, whatever we do in our life. So my very first question I want to ask both of you is, what is management for you? And I want both of you to answer in just like one line, not very elaborated versions.
Okay, yeah, I can go. So for management for me is bringing clarity in case of confusion, and also most importantly acting upon the clarity. So bringing clarity and acting upon it is management for me.
Okay, how about you, Gaurav?
Sorry. So yeah, for me, I think management is about like planning, organizing, and also a bit of people management, or like communication as well with people. Since I'm working, or my working style is more about interacting with people, and then like kind of segregating tasks and so on. So yeah, I think it's also, apart from planning, organizing of tasks and processes, also a bit of people skills involved.
Right.
So yeah.
So we'll continue with you, Gaurav, that whatever you said right now about planning, organizing, communication, interpersonal skills, why do you think management is central to one's life and how is it acting for you?
I think, well, also, like for me personally, it's like, so, because I have no industrial experience as such, right? I did my bachelor's and then I came to Germany for my master's, and then, like, in a month or two, I switched to PhD. And so for me, like, management in that aspect has always been about like project planning, which means that at a certain level, if you're interacting with your supervisor or so, and then you have a broad sense of what's the goal and what you want to achieve. But those things, of course, like in masters, sometimes the project can be of 2 months or 6 to 8 months, depending if it's a master thesis. In a PhD, the goal outlined is generally going up to like 3 years, or sometimes it's even unachievable. And then the aim at the end is like, okay, you want to get there, but then realistically, as a PhD or as a researcher, it's about getting as close to it as possible, right? And then there is where management comes in, because it's such a long timeline that you have to either diversify or you have to kind of narrow down. And this is where like character flaws coming, where, for example, let's say somebody can get tunnel vision, and so if you do not have like this very clear sight, you might lose track. And because also when you're working in, like, I don't know, in a PhD type situation, you end up needing to do a lot of things, and in that case you might like some more than the other. And that's where like you can get tunnel vision into doing one task more, which might be good mentally because now you're in your comfort zone, but then that's not really good for the goal of the project that has been defined. And this then goes into management, where like you really need to be organized in a way where, okay, yeah, I like this more, I don't like this, but I need to either be able to do the part I don't like, or I need to be able to delegate or collaborate with people where they can help me do the things I don't like or I'm not capable of. And so that's where management comes in, where you need people like supervisors or your collaborators who keep you in check, either from broadening up too much or also getting yourself tunnel vision. So this is in my case, because I also face this problem myself, where you get involved in projects and then like sometimes you enjoy one over the other, but at the end, I mean, you have to do all of them. And so this I would say is a thing for me. Yeah.
I think it's you have shared it in a very wonderful manner, in a elaborated way, and you mentioned about lot of aspects of management in a niche manner. You mentioned about project management, you mentioned about time and task management, you also mentioned about strategic management, because you said that we need to set a goal, we need to align with, okay, the milestones that we want to achieve in a certain period of time, and which is all part of management, but seldom one sometimes thinks about that how to manage it in a systematic way. So that is why we are starting this series of episodes, that we will break it down to points and we'll try to explain each other how, what is it called in the language of management. And how about you, Rahul?
Yeah, I think like as Gaurav said, like I think also in industry, like what I have observed is we face similar challenges, like so, what Gaurav shared. But I think there is little bit of a difference in terms of working pattern of, in my opinion, of industry and PhD, where like industry likes more structure and certainty, where research and academia is more about exploration. Uh, but I would say like. Management in industry in or in what I have observed from industrial environment is also bringing aligning everyone to one goal, which is very important, which sometimes lack, that there can be so many meetings but we don't know what we want to achieve from the meeting. So we should have what we want to achieve, then a clear roadmap which industry requires is how we will achieve that, like broken down in terms of not the sci-fi steps but in real actionable steps which we can achieve. uh, that, and then of course measuring it and acting upon it. I mean, there can be qualitative steps which we cannot measure, but at least keeping track on it that we are online as per our timeline. But I would say often there can be cases that there can be so many meetings where we don't know exactly with high level of clarity what we want to achieve first of all, but then we jump on how we will achieving that, and which results in lot of inefficiency, because if we don't know what we want to achieve, how will we know how we can achieve it? Yeah, and of course there is like basics about time management which to be efficient in our daily life, yeah, daily work life, I mean.
I think you mentioned a very important point that sometimes we attend so many meetings and we don't know what to do in those meetings. Sometimes the agenda is not clear, which is a major challenge that I think most of the companies today are facing, especially post-COVID, because post-COVID pandemic, the structure of working in an organization has changed massively. There is flexible way of working, there's work from home policies. People are also doing a lot of virtual meetings and presentations. So also in one of the training that I was taking in a company, I was asking about the challenges that they were facing, and it was similar to sometimes in philosophical way we say in our personal life that life is all about learning and unlearning. So same way I think it applies same to meetings, that sometimes meetings is not always the solution. Sometimes not doing meetings can actually create more ideas, because we will have a space to think in an innovative way with less meetings at times. But again, it depends, it's subjective to industry specific and the team. But however, both
Yeah.
of you, yes, you were saying something.
In this context, I just have like a rhetorical open question, which I just become curious about. I think like maybe meetings should not be all the time about having like so much clarity about what and how and when. Probably there is also some value in having like a brainstorming exploratory meeting. I believe it might be more common in PhD. But I mean, I am not a management professional, but I would love to research more about what are the benefits about this like creative brainstorming exploratory meeting, how to conduct those meetings, how much should we put efforts, and yeah, and so on.
So during
Maybe a good topic.
managerial trainings, I do teach some of the methods when it terms of how to conduct internal and external meetings. It's a part of the communication module that I take for the trainees, and one of the thing that I mentioned is there are a lot of different types of meetings that one can conduct. As you rightly said, that PhD students might have meetings related to brainstorming, exploration, and it is subjective to different industries. Even in creative industries like fashion designing, artists conduct such kinds of brainstorming meetings as well. So many corporates today are applying those similar models where once in a week or once in a month they have this round table meeting where they just have pizza on the table or some refreshments that they enjoy together, and while having that they have very random conversations, not very structured, but in those random conversations they can actually get some very innovative ideas, and sometimes even those informal conversations can lead to a good team bonding, or maybe knowing skills about your team members that you were not aware of before. And it also helps in skill metrics and internal promotion at times if you discover more through these meetings about your employees. Second, one of the other method of meeting is skip meetings. Sometimes, let's say I'm reporting to my manager and I'm not getting some of the mentorship that I expect from my manager. So there are compulsory quarterly skip meetings that are conducted in many companies where I can skip talking directly to the manager, and I will directly talk to my manager's boss, where the intention would not be to complain but just to have an interaction for me to have more clarity. Gaurav, do you have any perspective on the lines that I and Rahul just mentioned about the meeting mess?
Yes. So it was very interesting that you mentioned this skip meetings, right? Because in a PhD structure, I think in almost all universities, at least here, we have this concept of TAC meeting, which means like thesis advisory committee meetings, which are kind of once a year thingy. And depending on the structure and the graduate school, these might like the frequency and the format might vary, but these are essentially that you have your supervisor, of course, the main PhD guide, but then you also have two or three other professors or senior researchers who kind of annually or at whatever frequency you present them your work and you get feedback. And this acts kind of in a similar fashion that you mentioned, where like you interact with them and have a brainstorming session or get a feedback on how the PhD is evolving from like what was the goal to what are the results and what can be done in a pragmatic sense. Let's say if I have now 1 year left, what would be the most feasible and practical way to finish it, versus if I have 2 years left and I'm at a certain stage, or is there publications coming out, or does this need to be put in a separate publication, and then do I need to wind up in this way, that way, these kind of things, which because of having this external input, you get a different perspective compared to just the professor or just yourself. And this the format, for example, we have at our universities, where like you have the normal presentation thingy with your professor and the committee members. I'm sorry for the throat. Yeah, and you then have this format where like you are supposed to go out, and then they have a meeting with the professor to kind of discuss you, and then the professor is supposed to go out and they ask you about if we need something which the professor cannot provide and so on. And so you also have this kind of confidentiality where like, okay, it's not always about, as you say, right, it's not about complaining or bitching about the professor or so, but then it's about getting this external input. Or in some cases, I mean, academic environments can be toxic or let's say lacking something or the other, and then this is where you have the opportunity to really voice it out.
No, definitely. I believe that when it's about interpersonal communication, organizational communication, different formats of meeting is extremely important because it does brings a very fresh perspective. So since we were talking about management, about you both mentioned how it helps to bring clarity, to structure things for planning, organizing, time task management, to bring clarity in one's work, delegating work, all of those aspects. Then why do you think management as a field of education, as a faculty, is so maybe either overrated or undervalued? Why is it that people have such kind of perspectives in their mind for let's say students who have a background of BBA, MBA, all the managerial faculties? Why do you think it is undervalued at times?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I think it's partly also like the Indian education system, right, which is inherently having this kind of flawed structure where like certain things are more valued over the others. Like we have this classic hierarchy of like 90 and above you go to medicine, 70 and above you go to engineering, and then the rest is just like scraps, right? That's how like the whole system is perceived. So I think that's definitely one issue. But other than that, I think it's also management and communication skills and this whole topic, right? It's such a kind of a soft underlying thing that is required in everything, but it's also like it doesn't have very materialistic perception, right? Like for example, if you say, okay, you're learning how to make a car, if you're in automotive, it's very easy to perceive how you're adding value to society. If you say that you're learning how to operate on people and cure diseases, it's very easy to perceive the value addition. But management and economics and all these things, they get slightly far away, where they have very indirect influence on functioning of the organization as well as society in indirect fashion. And so it's really hard for also parents or people to just perceive, and then people just go by market trends and let's go into engineering, let's go into this, let's go into that. So yeah.
How about you, Rahul? What is your perception on it?
Well, I don't have actually certain answer on this one, but I really like the point Gaurav bring up that engineering is so tangible, but management is so intangible, so it's so difficult to measure, and I completely agree with that. And I also think like me and Gaurav, we both come from engineering background, and we come from school of thought that you need a product and then you can do the management. But maybe on the other outlook, we can also think that the product came because of management, identifying the needs of the market, and that maybe it started with management, and we engineers think that okay, we first introduced a product and then it took over from management. I think it's how we think about it, and yeah, I don't have so certain answers about like some fields why they are not valued so much like BBA or other fields. But yeah, there are some fields like CA or something which are societally more difficult to pursue or attain, which are valued. But yeah, that's true in general. There is more value given, at least in our society, to engineers and doctors. Uh, in terms of academia is concerned, I think so.
Yeah, I believe
I don't know.
sad reality, because if we research and if we look at the numbers, statistics, most of the industrial companies that the majority of the GDP that a country gets is from businesses, right? And one of the major factor for many companies going into liquidation at times is because they lacked proper management, they lacked proper system, and that is all connected with managerial aspects. And it is so sad that yet it is so undervalued. But maybe perhaps because Gaurav mentioned in a very right manner that it is a very soft part of a field of education. It contributes in a very indirect way. If we talk about doctors, they say, oh, we save lives. Um, if we talk about engineers, they say that, oh, we make your life easier by creating new tools, technologies. Whereas in management, we just manage all of those things. So maybe because of that thing, but yet, as I said, that without management, it's like from the time that we wake up in the morning till the time we go back to bed, we are literally doing nothing but just managing things, despite of what our professions are. Even when we go back to bed, we make a checklist in our head for the next day. How are we going to manage the next day for us? What time will we wake up? So we do the time management, what breakfast we will cook. We also manage our relationships. So I think management is something that no one can skip out of their life, irrespective of professions. But it's a sad reality. But again, I also feel, on the contrary, on the other hand, that it is undervalued, because just like other faculties of education, like the doctors, let's say, they do have to go through residency during their MBBS degree, and they work in the hospitals with proper doctors who are their bosses, and they have to report to them. They go through lots of practical exposure daily while spending time in the OPD. Same way for engineers, I believe that there are the every university spends a lot of their resources on creating workshops. So I believe that because of that, that is the gap, that for MBA, we don't have that practical exposure. It's like 2 years, we just have to learn theories, analyze case studies, do SWOT analysis, give recommendations. Whereas when we enter the market, when we enter, we get the first job, our job is not to recommend things and analyze things all the time while doing case studies. We have to manage things. And the 2 months of internship that we go through is not enough exposure that that we require. So I believe that there should be some area where the education system needs to change, where there's 50% of theoretical learning, classroom learning, and 50% some practical exposure in different industries. And yet we do have industrial visits, but it's more like a picnic. So one day of industrial visit is not enough for anyone to learn different managerial aspects and system of any industry. So maybe in my perception, it is undervalued because of that, because of maybe the structure that is there in terms of the faculty of management?
So, yeah, I think, in my opinion, like, I'm not so familiar with all the course curriculum of management. It can be something interesting to explore more in detail about it. Uh, and probably that is some curiosity how we can make management, or like, I don't even know the current status, but how it can be made more engaging, as you said, which is the current challenge. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Namrata. Yeah, that was a very like very valid point that you raised, and I think it truly is important that since it is something that is involved in all aspects of life, and especially in a professional setup, no matter what position you hold, you always need to practice it or implement certain management skills. So it is important, and you cannot really be like going on without it. So yeah, definitely. And as Rahul rightly pointed out, that now the challenge is to make it more engaging, interesting, and also to reach it, to make it reach easily to the people. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was quite fun today, Gaurav and Rahul. And I think this was good for starters because this was our very first episode. We are going to do a couple of more episodes on the same lines, discussing. We'll go break it down to niche of different managerial aspects and subjects, and we'll talk about it, how you are using it in your professions. We'll also compare in terms of how the system is in Germany, how is it working in Sweden, and I live in India, so how do we do it in India? So this was great for starters, and yeah, let's stay tuned, and we'll see you next week with a very different topic but related to management. So that's it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed the conversation. As had earlier mentioned, it was going to be very basic. This was a very introductory episode, but we are going to dig deep into various aspects of management as we proceed further into different episodes. So stay tuned on the channel for more interesting conversations coming up. I'll see you next week.